Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Novelists Unwind. This is such a cool thing to have Patricia Bradley with me again because she was my very first guest when I first started Novelists Unwind. And that posted, I just looked it up a little bit ago, August 5th, 2017.
2017.
Yeah, so it's been we're almost 3 years old. We'll be 3 years old
Right.
in August, which is really, really cool. So
Yeah.
Pat was my first guest, and welcome. I do want to say welcome.
Yeah.
She was my first guest because we've been friends for a long, long time, and I was really nervous about starting Novelists Unwind, and not knowing how it was going to turn out, not knowing we would ever make 3 years, maybe not even one, and here we are at almost 3. And so I wanted somebody to be my guest who would understand if I flubbed up.
That was actually my first video as well.
Really? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I didn't remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, well, that's
Yeah.
cool. So Pat and I first met each other when we were put into the same critique group for American Christian fiction writers. I don't even know when.
It was actually 2009.
Was it? Okay.
In like October, November of
Yeah, that's
2009.
about right. And we were in the same group. Neither one of us was published. We were critiquing each other's works, and just over time we met in person, and friendships developed. And then I moved closer to where she lives, so we've actually got to spend some time together.
And I hate that you moved away.
Yeah, then I moved further away because I move around a lot. But have spent weekends in her home, and she's such a gracious hostess. And so it's just a pleasure to have you back again and to see how your career has just taken off in such a fabulous, fabulous way. So
I'm so glad to be here. I love talking to you anyway. I think we could probably spend quite a bit of time just talking. So
we sure can. And we do brainstorm together. So we don't really do critique so much anymore, but we still read each other's drafts and
brainstorm.
And brainstorm and get together. So that's always a lot of fun.
You helped me with the ending on this. You and Julie.
That's right. I did. I did. Well,
because the character quit talking to me. She got mad and wouldn't talk to me because I don't know what I did, but y'all helped me figure it out.
And characters do that. If you're not a writer, you may not understand, but they do not talk to you sometimes, and when they don't, it's painful.
It is. I mean, it's like you're hitting your head against the wall.
Yeah.
And you're also on your knees praying, asking God to help you, make them talk again.
I have done that, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's just well, I hardly even know where to begin, but we've shown Standoff. This is the first book in the Natchez Trace Park Rangers series.
Right.
But this is definitely not Pat's first book. I mean, what does this make, number?
That's 9.
9? That's what I was thinking.
10 is with the final editor, and I'm starting work on the 11th. And then I have 2 Harlequin books, so that makes 13.
Wow, that's just great.
Since 2013. Actually, I have written all of them but one since 2013.
That is a lot.
It is. That's all I've done, I think.
I know you've been really, really busy. Right.
I don't have a lot of time left, I'm not one of these 20-year-olds.
You want to get them all in as quick as possible.
True.
Pat's her career has been really, really great. So I'm just going to read from the back of the book really quick. She's won an Inspirational Reader's Choice Award in Romantic Suspense, which is her genre. I mean, she just owns it. A Daphne du Maurier Award, a Touched by Love Award, and she was a Carol Award finalist. And that Carol Award finalist is absolutely, all of these are wonderful awards, but that is a big deal in the inspirational writing community. To be a Carol finalist is just tremendous. So congratulations on.
Thank you. It surprised me, but I was thrilled. I'm actually entered it again this year for the book last year, not this one.
Good.
So who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
It depends on who God has planned for it.
Isn't that?
And that's the way I've always looked at it.
True. Yes. Because before you were published, you also were a finalist in the
Genesis.
contest, which also is a really big deal. So
Right.
yeah,
And while I did not win that, I did get a contract out of
because of that.
it, I think,
Wow. Yeah, so that really is wonderful.
being a finalist.
Oh, it really is. It is a great contest for unpublished authors, and yeah, contracts do come from that. Well, let's talk about Standoff and Natchez Trace, because Pat lives in Mississippi, and almost all your books are set in Mississippi, Tennessee, Memphis area,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I've always thought Mississippi got a lot of negative publicity, so I thought I'd try to brighten it a little bit, and then I go and kill people.
Yeah. Well, tell us about Natchez Trace. I mean, I always wanted to do that road trip and never, you know how it is when you live someplace, you think you always do it and you don't, and then you move away and it's too late. So tell us the fascination. And I know you've done a lot of research on that.
Actually, it runs from Natchez from Natchez to Nashville, and I was familiar with the part near me, which is I'm 20 miles from Alabama, and or 30 miles I'm 20 miles from the Alabama state line, and then about 30 from the Natchez Trace. I mean, it's not far from me, and I was familiar with it. Had been up through from the Alabama line to Nashville, and that's where I actually thought about setting it. But my editor fell in love with the idea of putting it in Natchez. So I had that meant I had never been to Natchez. So I had to go down there and do quite a bit of research. And I love it down there. I could move down there.
That's really cool. What appeals to you so much about that area?
I don't know. I think it's one thing. I usually go in the spring, and everything's in bloom, and there's always a breeze, and the Spanish moss, and the let's see, the crepe myrtles. That must be the state, the city flower, because everywhere you see there are crepe myrtles, and there's just all those mansions, those antebellum homes, and then the Natchez Trace itself owns Melrose, and they own Fort Rosalie, where I put it. Melrose will be the setting of probably the next book, but
is that the name of an estate or?
It is. It's an estate. It's called Melrose, and they have preserved it, and there's quite a tribute to the slaves that were there. It's really a very interesting, but that whole area is just so interesting. Great places to eat. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, they got Fat Mama's tamales, and they got all kinds of places. But they have really good catfish down there too.
Oh, I like good catfish.
Yeah.
So what's the history about the trace itself? Why is it significant and historic?
I have always been fascinated with that. It was originally formed by bison who followed the trails to salt licks. And then Indians began to use it, and then fur trappers and traders. And then finally, Andrew Jackson even used it to move his troops from Nashville to not New Orleans, but to Natchez, and then on to New Orleans during the War of 1812.
Oh my gosh! So, wow!
Yeah, it's and when you think about moving troops, the Natchez Trace was no wider than a 2-lane road. So that just amazed me how they moved that many people on it. But it was a direct route from Nashville to Natchez. Wow! There were lots of highwaymen on it. There are a lot of stories for that, and it's just had rich in history. Down at every part of that area is rich in history.
And I love that you love history so much, and that you pull that in, because you write contemporary stories, and yet you're able just to bring in all this history because you root them in that. You root them in the place. Right. They're very much Mississippi and Memphis stories. Your books are.
Right. Yeah, I grew up in Memphis, so that made it easier to set things there and know the attitudes and the way people looked at things. Although I've been removed from there for quite a few years.
Yeah, but you're not
It's
too
far.
far. Yeah.
No, it's not far.
Yeah. I remember reading one of your books and I became really fascinated by the accents because, of course, most of the characters have Southern accents, but you really were making a point in one specific story. And I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the second or third
I
one.
think it's the first one.
In
I
Logan.
think it was the first
It
one.
wasn't the first one because it was the one, oh my gosh, where the girl changed her hair color.
Oh yeah, that
Heroine
was.
changed her hair color, I think.
I think that's Gone Without a Trace.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, but very much the difference between like Virginia Southern and I forget what else. But you know,
Yeah.
it was like, yeah. I mean, you know, then I knew that, but it's like I didn't know I knew it. You know,
Yeah.
I knew not all Southern accents were the same.
They're not. They're.
But yeah, but nobody talks about them not being the same until
Right.
that book. So
in this book, I even have Cajun. I have a Cajun.
Wow.
And so, and that is totally different. The accent is. So,
well,
I've never listened to one of my books. I just simply, I've tried, but it's just maybe one day. Oh, I need. You're gonna have to cut this out.
Uh-oh, what happened?
I got the wrong name.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
No, you're all right.
There, I should have had that all the time. I always forget that.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, that's okay.
All right, where were we?
Pause. Let me think what I want to say first before I say, okay, now's the moment. What were we talking about? Oh, I know.
Accent. You're on accent.
Accents, yeah. So anyway, that was really interesting about the accents and bringing that in, and the Cajun thing is really cool too. Yeah. Isn't there something really strange about? I'm trying to remember what I've read about either Lewis or Clark in Natchez.
Merriwether Lewis died. He was closer to Nashville. Okay. And and they didn't know whether he was murdered or if he committed suicide, but they have finally decided that he was taking arsenic for some problem that he had, and back in the day they prescribed arsenic, and he got such a load that it messed up his mind, and he probably killed himself, but it was due to the arsenic.
Oh my goodness! Wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
It's fascinating, but
no, has that been worked into any of your stories or?
No, that's in the wrong place.
It's just
it's near Nashville.
So you're staying more this way, yeah.
It's at the southern terminus or the begin. It's at the end. The trace begins or ends at Natchez.
Okay.
And actually, the most it was used, back to the history of it, was the Kentuckians who took their wares down the Mississippi to New Orleans, and then they would hike back up to Natchez and go through the trace to get back home, because at that time there were no boats going upriver. It wasn't until the paddle wheelers came along that they could travel up.
Oh my goodness, that's so fascinating.
And that's why it declined in use after the 1820s.
Wow, wow. That's really cool. Well, what do you want to tell us about Standoff? Yeah, I want to make sure I got about the story and about the characters in here, because it is park rangers. We've talked about Natchez Trace.
Yeah. Both the characters in this one are park rangers. There are and when I wrote the story, when I thought about writing it, I had no idea that there were two different types of rangers. That's how much I knew. I just thought everyone was
a ranger.
Well, the Natchez Trace Parkway only has law enforcement rangers, so that I had to adjust my thinking on that, and that meant if I had a character who was going to be involved in the murder mystery, she needed to be a law enforcement ranger. So I sent her to school to the training, and her parents did not want her to be a law enforcement ranger because it is dangerous, and but she has not been sworn in when the book opens, and her father is going to swear her in the next Monday, when he is murdered on Sunday night. And so basically the beginning of the story, it's about and it was ruled a suicide, which she knows was impossible, but the evidence pointed, other than no suicide note, and probably there are not suicide notes, 50% or more suicides, that she had no way of proving it wasn't suicide. And so, but that was her goal, was to prove it was suicide. And then all of a sudden, someone that she had been in love with as a teenager is back in Natchez, and she's kind of aggravated at him because he had not contacted her in all the years, but he'd stayed in touch with her father, and she couldn't understand that. And that was Luke Faraday, and he was working undercover and I didn't even know that the Natchez that the Park Service had undercover rangers, and it's a very small group that they have, but they go all over the United States to the national parks and investigate. And he's there trying to catch the people sending drugs up the Natchez Trace.
That's so interesting. It's so fun when you just start to develop a story and you think you know something, and then you just find out all this other information, but then it helps drive the plot and helps grow the characters and all of that. Yeah.
It does. Really I made a couple of good friends. Sarah Day, I'm not supposed to say her name. The park does not really want you using individuals' names, because I asked her if I could acknowledge her in the book, and she said it'd be better not to. But she was, at the time, she was the top law enforcement ranger on the Trace, and I would shoot her an email, and she'd shoot me an answer back.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah,
that's great.
And then I had an interpretive ranger who helped me with the just general ranger duties for a lot of them. So there's a mix of all of them in that.
Oh, that's really cool. That's cool. Well, the Standoff just came. It's out now, right? It just released.
Right. It released Tuesday. Tomorrow will be a week.
Oh, good. Yay. So brand new book out from Patricia Bradley. Definitely want to read it. The first book in a series. I also want to talk just a moment about your blog, because and tell everybody, Pat has an amazing blog, if you've not been on it, where she does these, oh my God, these crime things. And it's like, I don't know how you come up with them again and again and again, because you've been doing this for at least a year.
A couple of years now. Actually, finding the crazy ones is no problem. You would not.
I'm sure not.
My problem is coming up with one as crazy as what some of the real ones are.
But you do. So explain to people what you do on your.
It's called It's called mystery. Let's see. It's called mystery question.
Something like that.
Yeah, I can't even remember, because it's anyway. In it, I usually have, right now I have scripture. I have a meme with scripture on it, and then I talk a little bit about what's going on in my life, like when the book released or when the character won't talk to me, and then I'll say, now on to this week's mystery question, and there are 4 scenarios. 3 are true. I made up one. Can you tell which one I made up? So, and then I'll have 4 that they can choose from. And I've skunked my readers maybe twice that no one got it, which I thought, yes, but that doesn't happen. I have a couple of men who read it, and their logic sometimes works. They'll reason it out, but then sometimes it doesn't. So, but I was trying to think of. You just have to go there, because I can't think of they are right now. But it's a lot of fun, and people like to try to beat me. They love trying to guess which one it is.
It's a genius thing to have on your blog, because it brings people back week after week, because you want to find out whether or not you were right, or which one it was, answer, and all of that. And you're right. People do.
It is. I love doing those, and I also have the Friday, what I'm reading Friday book where I talk about what I'm reading, and the Mischief Chief will be on it, not this Friday, but the next.
That's my latest book.
Yes.
Which Pat did help me brainstorm with. Kind of ended up going in a little bit different direction, but you were so helpful. Oh my gosh.
I can tell you how to kill somebody. I just can't tell you how to get them together.
What's your favorite method of killing characters?
I had one, I think, where let's see. What is my favorite? I like shooting them. But one of them, there's one where the villain tried to kill her with a welded horseshoe. So
yeah, that's a little bit off the wall, isn't it?
Yeah,
a little different. Yeah. I remember too when I was writing my very first cozy mystery, Pat and I did a lot of brainstorming then. Because she knew about poisons and I did not. So yeah, that was fun conversations.
You do know that Homeland Security has a page for each of us.
Probably. I know when you Google or do an internet search for some things, and I think, oh my gosh, they're going to wonder, why in the world I'm
right. I'm sure they already know we're writers.
They probably do. Well, this is, it's always a lot of fun. Yeah. And thanks for coming back from being my very first guest, because that was a lot of fun too. And,
I hate to see you end this, but I know it's very time consuming, and you can't, when you have deadlines, a lot of things have to go by the wayside.
Yeah. We're going to hang on for a while longer, but yeah, this might be. We might be closing down in a few months. We'll see what happens. So, last question, as always, what do you do to unwind after hitting the end?
You're not going to believe it, but it's usually starting another one.
That's a popular answer, actually. A lot of the writers say.
I actually rarely unwind, especially now with the COVID. You can't go anywhere.
Right.
And I'm not an unwinding person.
No, you are.
I am I'm an ADHD. I have ADHD, and the good thing about that is it gives me a lot of energy.
Yes, it
does. And because I have people asking me, how do you do all that? And God and ADHD, because it really does. I have a lot I
It's like turning something considered a weakness into a strength, right?
Right.
It's not really
Actually, the writing helped me to focus that ADHD energy into that. I think that's why I've been able to write 13 books or 12 books in 12 books, 3 novellas in 7 years.
Yeah, because that's a lot. It's a lot.
That's a lot of words, because the books, most of the books are 70 or 95 to 100,000 words.
Yeah.
Standoff is the biggest book I've ever written. It came in close. It actually came in at 104,000 or 106,000, and I had to cut. I had to cut 6 because they didn't want over 100,000. I ended up cutting 2 more, so I cut about 8,000 words, I guess.
Wow, that's not easy either.
Not for me when I write so lean to start with.
You do write lean to start with. Yeah. So that is tough. Well, congratulations on another new series. There will be 4 books in the series altogether. So we'll be able to enjoy more stories from Patricia Bradley. Thanks for being my guest.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye. You too. Thanks everyone for watching. We're glad you're here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.